So recently, the 2.0 update for Cyberpunk 2077 came out, and the biggest question, of course, is the game playable now? Because if you recall with the 1.0 version of this game, and I will try to get some footage from back then that I happen to still have archived. I hope I still have it archived. I knew I would need this someday, so I better have held on to it. This was my experience playing the game for the first time. Now, there are a few things that you should probably know. One, this was my old computer. This was the computer that was really powerful for like 2017, but definitely wasn't for 2020. Yeah, Cyberpunk was kind of an interesting moment for that computer because that's when I realized that new games were starting to become a little bit more demanding than what my computer could actually offer. Because I noticed at that point I was slowly having to turn down the settings, like, oh yeah, I could run this at ultra, okay, now I have to run this at high. Okay, now I'm running this at medium, and with Cyberpunk it's like, okay, everything's at the lowest settings, and the game still runs terribly. Now, was that because the game was poorly optimized, or was that because my computer wasn't powerful? I think it was both, and because of that, I wanted to still give the game a fair chance because it's a cyberpunk, well, okay, it's the name of the game, but I am a fan of cyberpunk, I'm a fan of steampunk, all that kind of shit. I like almost even though I would say that our world still has the potential to go more in like the direction of cyberpunk-ish stuff. I like alternate technology fantasies like that. So point is, I bought this game that as I was playing it initially, I was hearing, oh, this game doesn't really run that well on other things. So I had the idea that I was not going to play any further than the first act because I wanted to experience this game as good as I could. So I was going to wait for performance updates, I was going to wait until I built a new computer, and fast forward to building this new computer, I actually installed Cyberpunk as a benchmark thing, got my save from my old computer, loaded it up, and was pretty surprised. But because I thought, okay, my computer is really fucking powerful now. But now with this 2.0 update, it is clear to me that this is supposed to mark like a new era in the game, especially with this new expansion that's supposed to be coming out tomorrow, I think. I don't plan on playing that immediately because I still want to get through the original story of the game. But I also am just kind of hoping that when it comes out, it's not going to be a same rehashing of what happened back in 2020. Because if it takes 2 years or 3 years for an expansion pack to be playable, or to be good, then that's just another slap in the, well, no, punch in the fucking nuts at that point. So, anyway, couple minutes into the video now, I want to talk about this game because, I have some kind of mixed thoughts on this. So, I'll put it like this. Originally, this video was actually going to be a lot more negative because I had a lot of performance problems with this game. Almost everything was impacted in some way, and it didn't make sense to me because I have, and I'll put some of the specs up on screen right now, I have the game running off of a solid state. The thing is on a really good CPU, and maybe not like a 4090, but a 3070 is still a pretty good graphics card. This isn't running off of like an iPad. This is running off of some real hardware that this game should be working on. Some of the problems ranged from cutscenes stuttering to driving stuttering to the map stuttering. And this overall was an experience that maybe only made up about 10% of the game, because otherwise the game was running pretty smooth, and there wasn't really a pattern to when the game would start stuttering or dropping frames, except for some of the cutscenes, but it also happened outside of some of these cutscenes as well. I was thinking, like, what the fuck, man? How is this possible that you've spent all this time optimizing the game and it still doesn't run well? Now, if you've clicked off the video at this point, you would think that the game runs like ass. And it doesn't, actually, because I was a fucking idiot. Because I forgot to update my graphics driver. Yes, you need to update your graphics driver if you're going to play this, because I think what was going on, because I looked at some of the notes, some of the patch notes for the update, I realized that this driver actually introduces some proper software that's needed for this game, aka some of the AI upscaling, a newer version of it, I think. But yeah, it had an update for DLSS, which is the upscaling of the game, so because of that, I was having the game upscale with something that was was either an inferior version or just wasn't there. And that explained a lot of issues, because then I played some more of the game, because I played about 6 hours with this unoptimized, played the remaining 3 or 4 hours. I think that's about the ratio of time that I spent. It might have been closer to like 8 to 2, because I know that I've spent about 10 hours in the game this past weekend. Yeah, after updating the game runs really well, and because of that, like, my tone overall for this game has changed, because in the original version of this video, before I even updated, like, I had even recorded this, but then I realized afterwards, okay, maybe I should look at the updates for my drivers. And yeah, that's when I realized that I was about to make a serious mistake in that video. Now, I want to make something very clear. There's still some performance problems with this game. However, at this point, it is possible that what I was running into could just be because I was also recording. Because you gotta remember, how I'm recording any of this is because I have OBS open in the background. So there's a possibility that because I'm also encoding a video while playing this, the game might be running at a slightly lower frame rate than it should be. I still think that it could be optimized a little bit better, because there are a couple of like clear moments where that is a problem. Namely, some cutscenes I've noticed now are the only spots really where there's a like noticeable drop in frames. And as well the map. I don't know why the map is weird like that, but it just is. Those are two areas I've noticed where frame drops are all over the place. And I think even with the map, I'm pretty sure that there have been times where I've opened up the map, I just look over at my other monitor with OBS open, and in the bottom left corner it says encoding overload. And as for the cutscenes, these are just really weird why they would be like this, because, okay, I'm not even talking about, say, 60 frames a second gameplay and then cutting to a pre-rendered video that happens to be in 30. No, these are obviously in-engine cutscenes that end up at certain points just dropping a fuck ton of frames and going down to like 20. So I wanted to at least point all that out. The other thing that I need to also bring up with this update is bugs. The game has had a couple of bugs, but that's it. There have been a couple of moments where I've had the T-pose happen. Like, there was one in the middle of the All Foods quest, right in Act 1. Oh wait, no, sorry, there was one more. The footage you're seeing on screen, though, I was going to talk about this a lot more in an earlier version of this video, but I'm going to just chalk up the performance you're seeing on screen as being a mixture of me running OBS, the, like, not update graphics drivers and all that. And there was one other moment. I was driving on the expressway and suddenly a car just appeared in front of me for like 2 frames, and that was it. In summary, Cyberpunk 2.0 is pretty decently optimized compared to its 1.0 version, and a lot less buggy. Now, when I did play it the first time, I don't remember encountering as many bugs as everyone else was encountering, but I do distinctly remember some features that just weren't really there, i.e. the cops, that whole system. This time, however, there is the GTA cop system, so congratulations, CD Projekt Red, you're now at the PS2 era of video games. So now I'm just going to talk about the gameplay generally speaking, for really anyone who hasn't played Cyberpunk 2077 because of all the problems they've heard around it.
Call me Mr. Hands.
The gameplay is what you would expect from futuristic GTA 5, alright? The story is about what you would expect to. I obviously have not completed it yet. I've only gotten up to Act 1 at this point, because I wanted to make this video, but I also wasn't too sure if I was going to keep playing because of the performance problems. But anyway, I think I am going to finish the game. But so far, the general game loop that I have found is to do all the side quests, do all the missions. It kind of just feels like Watch Dogs in that respect. But I actually did kind of like Watch Dogs 2, so there's that. Like, this really was reminding me on some of these missions, except for the ability to actually go in guns blazing. This was reminding me of, in like Watch Dogs 2, you going in and having to like hijack a bunch of server rooms all over the place. Yeah, I can't tell if it is a good thing or not that, after some of the missions, the people that have hired me are like, why the fuck did you just kill everyone in there? You were supposed to go into a stealth mission, but we're paying you anyway. I don't know if that is some kind of penalty, if I'm actually making less, if I'm getting less experience or what, but I have found that the game is kind of easy in that respect, because you really can just go in guns blazing, and my character isn't even all that strong. I think I put most of my points into, I think, like a dexterity. I think that was the skill I put most of my points into. So it really does feel super easy going in and getting headshots on everyone. And also, I'm not playing on easy. I am playing on hard mode for this. I should point that out too. And of course, while that's going on, the game just looks really fucking nice. That is the thing that sold me the most on this game, is, again, the cyberpunk world, the big futuristic city, how nice everything ends up looking, where you have this cool atmosphere. Like, there's some footage I have on screen right now where there was this like shopping plaza area in the first area that you get in the game, and I was just walking around almost like it was virtual tourism, looking around this one district, trying to get like really pretty shots, that kind of thing. It's really enjoyable in that respect, just doing tourism in this world. And I imagine that a lot of the time that I will spend in the game will be that, because now that I am in Act 2 and the rest of the map has opened up, I already went for a drive around everything because I wanted to see a lot more of the city. I'd barely seen any of it back at 1.0. I didn't realize that there were more expressways than what I had found in the game, because I pretty much had only taken the loop road. And I thought that was kind of long enough. But turns out there's a bunch of expressways that go in and out the main core of the city too. It is a very scenic and pretty game, and if you have the hardware for it, you definitely should take advantage of that. I don't feel like I was wasting my graphics card on this. I don't feel like it was running at about 70 for nothing. But yeah, that's the new version of Cyberpunk 2077. It is enjoyable enough to me that I kind of want to be playing it right now instead of making this video. Now, there are a couple things to acknowledge. CD Projekt Red has done a good job with actually getting the game to what they promised, okay? The fact that they have supported the game for this long should be something that is recognized, that they didn't just give up on the game because they probably would have gotten sued and lost. With that said, I need to also emphasize that this should not be a pattern that we see in the video games industry, because I feel like that this is becoming more and more frequent and is going to be something that is just going to be rife for abuse. Well, what do I mean by this? Well, let's go back to No Man's Sky for a second. No Man's Sky was a game that was really hyped, and when it came out, it was critically panned because it was missing some features, the gameplay wasn't fun, so on and so forth. I never was interested in the game, I never played it, this was stuff that I remember generally hearing about it. So then, fast forward a few years, you have like the Internet Historian video coming out, where he ends up talking about the whole development history before and as well after the release, and how the game then had effectively this redemption arc. Okay? And I feel like that now the narrative is, look guys, this game that was shit got improved by the developers to be this game that is really good. It's a cool story. But the thing is that the game company still made a product that didn't meet the standards that they had promised. And that is the same story with Cyberpunk 2077. I happened to buy a copy for the PS4 in some store used for not that much. Actually, maybe the price tag is still on it. No, it's not. But this does look like a launch version of the game because, and keep in mind, I got this only a year ago. What came with it is the game on CD, along with some posters, a map, I think, and some other like strategy guide looking thing. If I open up, yeah, it's still like, it's almost like someone opened this up, played it for 20 minutes, and then just sold it back to the store. That's what this looks like. And again, I didn't get it for that expensive, but the reason I bought it was because this was the 1.0 version on the PS4. Now, I have a PS4 Pro, so I wouldn't have been able to do this. But this game, we know on version 1.0, did not work on the PS4. And yet, it's a game that was being developed and being advertised to play on the PS4. Now I get it, the PS4 has its Pro version, but there's people that were still playing on the original PS4, because why are you going to buy a whole other console? That is a perfectly valid rationale that is a consequence of having a mid-generation upgrade, and the last video game console generation was the first generation to really do that. The thing is that this game needed to be able to play on that original PS4, and simply couldn't, because there were so many problems with it. Let me put it back on the shelf. So that was the worst case scenario for Cyberpunk 2077, is getting it for a console it was advertised for its entire time being announced, and it just not playing. So CD Projekt Red did make a really big mistake in falsely advertising their game for that. And that needs to be remembered. Now, even though they have rectified it, I would say, well, you still can't really play on the old PS4, but they have tried their best to move on from it, and at least on the PC version has rectified it. There's still the fact that they did release a game that was pretty incomplete and pretty buggy and pretty unstable, and then it took another couple of years to get it fixed. Meanwhile, a lot of people did put down the $60 to get that game. So now the question is, well, should it have even released in 2020, or should it have released in, hell, 2022 or 2023? And that's the thing, where if the game were released then, with the quality that it is now, you wouldn't have this problem. And the point I'm getting at, and actually one more thing I need to mention, is also Final Fantasy XIV, how it had its version that was really bad, apparently. I don't play MMOs. So 14 got remade, and has actually become one of Square Enix's most successful games right now. The fact of the matter is that this, how I'm seeing it, is this is now the third big AAA game that released in a pretty incomplete state that then got patched after a few years to the state that it should have been when it was released. And the question now becomes, well, if the game is just going to be released and not even be complete, then why isn't it just an early access game? And now the question also becomes, how long until, like, Activision releases a Call of Duty that is just completely incomplete? Or EA releases a game that is also completely incomplete, but then they patch in some features over the next couple years. Oh, wait a minute. Electronic Arts has kind of done that with The Sims 4, because there's a lot of things that even almost 10 years after that game's release that The Sims 3 had that The Sims 4 doesn't. And then even on The Sims 4 launch, there were a lot of things that were missing that were kind of staples to the whole series. So the cynical side may see this as just another fucking trend in the industry that ends up being worse for the consumer. So while I will praise CD Projekt Red for spending the past couple of years actually fixing this mess and turning it into something that is pretty enjoyable, I also am going to tell you that that is the bare minimum. Really, the bare minimum should be releasing a game that is complete, that is pretty stable, that runs on the platform it's supposed to run on. Because also, you have to think, at the end of the day, Cyberpunk 2077 isn't doing anything all that new, except for, you could say, like, ray tracing, or, like, bigger cities. Maybe stuff like that. Because ultimately, the Grand Theft Auto formula that it's using, well, that just goes back to like the PS2. And yes, I know that Grand Theft Auto technically goes back to like the PS1 and DOS, but those were top-down 2D games. In terms of a 3D open world where you drive cars and have chases with the cops, all that, I mean, that's the PS2 era right there with GTA 3, with Vice City, with San Andreas. Because seriously, I would hope that Rockstar wouldn't do this, because they generally do release good games. Imagine if like GTA 6 comes out and it's missing like half the staples, no, even 10% of the staples of the series. Imagine GTA 6 comes out and the cop chases are broken. Imagine the game comes out and it just doesn't run on any systems. Imagine anything like that, and that would be absolutely, and rightfully so, unacceptable. And by the way, I'm not saying this as games need to be perfect. If there was a single frame drop, it's the worst game ever, anything like that. No. I'm saying that the bare minimum needs to be the game is done. If the story is shit afterwards, then that's a whole other thing. That's for the critics to talk about. But if the game doesn't even run well, well, that's a whole other problem. And I and many others feel like that was a big problem with Cyberpunk 2077. So in conclusion, the game is playable now. If you've been holding off for this long for Cyberpunk 2077, definitely check system specs, make sure that it can run on your computer. Do not try to run this on an iPad. And get the game now, because the game is enjoyable, and I really do want to be playing it right now. But mark my word, this will become a trend in the video game industry if there is no resistance to this. Because what will begin to happen is you're going to have video game companies be like, whoops, we accidentally released a game that was incomplete. Please give us 3 years to fix it, even though you've paid us. Ultimately, that is anti-consumer as fuck. What is going on here? Oh, they're almost through. Oh, oh. Oh, shit. Oh, no. Oh, that guy just left. Anyway, subscribe to the channels. I'm out.